what's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here for the third episode of Sanctify Radio. If you are listening to this on your Spotify app or any other podcast app and you happen to want to watch this episode, which may come in handy because I will be having a conversation with the one and only Nate Parrish, then what you can do is you can go over to the description and click the link that says click here to watch this episode, and you can watch this episode. And if you are watching on YouTube right now and you have some errands to run, maybe you are going to go out for a run, maybe you need to wash the dishes, clean some house, do some chores, and you can't watch it, but you still want to follow along and listen, then you can go over to Spotify. You can follow the podcast there, or any of your other podcast apps. I think we're on Stitcher and all that stuff. So just look up Sanctify Radio and it should be there. I'm really excited for today's episode, guys, because again, we are going to be talking with the one and only Nate Parrish. We go into some great conversation. Really easy to be in conversation with him. He's such an awesome dude. And we talk a lot about his music. We talk a lot about the themes that his music covers. And I wanted to read this verse to kind of set the tone. We always hear the verse that says that those who are exalted will be humbled, and those who are humbled will be exalted. But I don't think any of us have really read the verses that are leading up to that. And I think that these verses really do reflect a lot of the material that Nate Parrish writes, and it also reflects a lot of where our conversation went today. So let's go ahead and read through Matthew chapter 23, starting in verse 1. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they preach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show, and on their arms they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels, and they love to sit at the head table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you only have one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant. But those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." I love how these verses really address the problems that we face today with celebrity pastors and megachurch culture, and legalistic standards in churches and misunderstandings and a unwillingness to want to have grace for our fellow members of the body. And those are a lot of the things that we talk about today in our discussion. So without further ado, here is my interview with Nate Parrish. All right, everybody, I am here with Nate Parrish, the punk rock star, who happened to have made it on the top 10 Christian rock album list of all time. Is that correct?
They didn't explicitly say all time, but the albums go back to the 70s. And mine was, I think, the only one of this current decade. So I have no idea.
Was your reel that you had posted an accurate depiction of your response to seeing that?
A guy tagged me on Facebook, but he didn't link to the article.
Okay.
So I was like, it was just a picture that he put. I was like, okay. So I thought, oh, that's not, because he put Spin Magazine. I was like, no, it couldn't be like the actual Spin Magazine. It's got to be some Christian version, like Holy Spin or something. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, it was there. I'm like, what the heck? So it's cool. It's kind of an eccentric list if you look at it. It's really a weird, not weird, but it's not what you would think.
Sure.
But it's got some of the, the great, Larry Norman was on there and some other guys like that. But yeah, super random. So I'll take it.
With a list with that much years in between, the latest and the newest, like I
Yeah.
feel like whoever picked those songs out or picked those albums out was really paying attention to details. It had to have really spoken to them, which
Yeah.
would not have been hard to do if they were listening to your music, because you just throw so many amazing nuggets of truth and thought and so many awesome things into your music. And I can totally see why someone would just be like, you know what? Yeah, this deserves to be on that list.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm sort of I agonize over lyrics. So like I'll write the music and melody pretty fast.
Uh-huh.
Um, but lyrics is what I'll spend months sometimes on. And sometimes I don't finish a song, and I'll finish it like a year later or something, just because I'm like, nope, it's not right. It's not, it's not really
It
saying enough.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It seems like every song that you write is always centered around a singular truth that you want to bring out.
yeah,
In the writing process, do you ever like I remember hearing that like Trevor McNeven would like write lyrics on napkins and toilet paper, like do you
yeah,
ever
yeah.
find a lyric that you're just like I need to write that down and that's going to be a song.
Yeah, it usually goes with it'll be like a single line, so like some sort of like clever line or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
I used to do before the iPhone. I used to carry a notebook with me. I would actually write it by hand while I was driving.
Okay,
So
okay.
I don't suggest that, but I'd put it on the steering wheel and I'd write,
It's all
without
good.
looking.
We've all
So,
seen that video that went viral with the guy like, oh, in the 90s, this was texting while driving. You're switching
yep.
CDs and you're
Oh, dude. Yeah. So that happens to me a lot where I'll be driving and like, ooh, and so I have my memo. There's like, probably like 100 different memos that are like a line,
yeah, yeah.
just like a rando line. Like we'll play a game. I'll pull one up right now. So to the top of my,
Got it,
okay.
got it.
So you ready for this? This is the line. Rainy days in shopping malls.
All right.
I was writing a song last night and that's what popped in my brain. And then I was like, why did I think that? And I
Uh-huh,
was writing a
uh-huh.
song about how I was thinking about where I'm at now and like my friends and people along the way that used to maybe be in the same faith community or even in
Mhm.
the same like just in the same world. And we all used to like care about the same stuff.
Uh-huh.
So we go to the mall on when it was raining, or we would, whatever. And now it's like we're not enemies, but we've gone so many different directions. And like, so what's the difference between me and this person?
Yeah, yeah.
Where I'm maybe still going this way and they're going that way. Like, when did it happen that we became vastly different people?
Yeah.
So
Dude.
that was just the line. And yeah. So
I have to tell you this because there's crazy people, and I'm sure you're probably one of them too, who will go back and watch Marvel movies. They'll go back and
mhm.
watch, they'll do it with the latest movie, obviously, because they're trying to get views and they're trying to get people to follow channels and stuff. But they'll go back and they'll look for all the Easter eggs, right?
Yeah.
A hundred Easter eggs in this movie, right? 100
Yeah.
Easter eggs in that one, and like you zoom in on the like character that's blurry in the background, and then they're like, and this is this guy from this comic book that
Yep.
is like in all these different issues, and it's alluding to there's going to be this character coming out in the future, and whatever,
Mhm.
right? Like all these Easter eggs, and it seems like you do that with
Mhm.
like life in general, right? You do that with life where we obviously don't have the ability to be able to watch our life in a movie, right? But
Mhm.
we have our minds and we have our thoughts and we have the way that we see our past. And it seems like you have a really amazing talent for kind of putting yourself in this like fly on the wall position to people in life, and like you're
Mhm.
looking for the Easter eggs. You're looking for the little truths and the little things of like what to think about and what is like yeah, why did this happen? Like, ooh, that's a really interesting aspect of life that maybe I haven't thought about before. It's just I love the way that you think of things and you just find truths to pick out of life.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but it makes sense. My wife always says, she's like, you're like a observer. Um, so I like to just watch people and I won't say a lot. Whatever, you take those personality tests and they tell you evidently you're this or
Right,
that. I don't
right,
really
yeah.
care about those, but I had to take them sometimes for work. And they're like, oh, you're the disruptor and you're the observer. I'm like, that makes sense because I sort of just watch people, and I think obviously you could learn a ton from just not talking all the time and
Sure,
just
sure.
watching and observing and like, oh, so this is, and then you write it down.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
I had it explained to me this way, like some people will look at their point of view and they'll be perfectly content with what they're looking at and just love it as the whole. There'll be some people who will pick apart all the little things that are in that picture, and then there's the like next level people who will step back and realize that there's so much more to the picture than what they're even looking at. They'll step
yeah,
back and realize like, oh my gosh, there's actually way more to this than what I was looking at just a second ago. And the more you step back, the more you find out there's more to pick apart and there's more to learn and there's more to look at.
yeah.
So,
I'm one of those guys that goes and watches those Easter egg. I love those.
yeah.
One of my I geek out about this is Zack Snyder. His treatment of the DC universe was my favorite personally because they're divisive, which speaks to me. But
Uh-huh.
also, he puts so much hidden imagery in the movies, a lot of Christocentric imagery too.
Really?
And yeah, there's just I could go on for forever. I actually watched a in real time when he sat down, he watched the movie from his theater, and you sync it up with him, and he
Yeah.
talks through all the things that he hid in there, and then he shows you parts from the script. And I was like, yes, dude, I knew there was something weird about why they hovered on that angle for so long,
Yeah. Yeah.
what that means, and there's all. So I love that kind of stuff. I think it's um, if you can make a really timeless piece of art, it usually has layers like that,
Oh, yeah.
and it usually comes off as very simplistic. You hear a song, you're like, oh yeah, this is about whatever, and if you think about it, you're like, no, there's something else there, and then you start to peel back layers, and that's why art like that tends to last
Yeah.
because it's got layers to it. But even in Soul Surgery, I put a bunch of Easter eggs in there. Um,
Absolutely.
there's a
Absolutely.
lot. You probably, I mean, you're very astute. You notice a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of they reference other songs or they reference other things, and yeah, there's all these tie-ins to the songs and stuff.
Well, I love that Soul Surgery obviously is like one of the biggest ones, right? Soul Surgery is the name of the album, and you hear that a lot through the different songs that we
Yeah.
have to deal with this surgery of the soul, and
Mhm.
a lot of those thrown in there. When was the decision made for you to name the album Soul Surgery?
So that song Soul Surgery, I wrote that in 2020.
Okay.
No, wait, in 2020. Yeah. When did my album come out? 2022? I don't even know what year
Yes.
it is.
Yeah. First
Yeah.
single came
Okay.
out 2021, I think,
So
with the.
yes. No, 2020 and 2022. So when I was the first album came out, I was writing Soul Surgery
Okay.
um, because of the how obvious it is had become that our natural tendency is just we medicate. I mean, it's just we're trained to do it. You got a
Uh-huh.
headache, take a pill, and it's like, well, why do I have a headache though? That's irrelevant. Just take the pill and it'll go away.
Right. Right.
I'm like, okay, but okay. And then before you know it, you just live on it. You don't even know what it's like to feel pain anymore because
Yeah.
you just can't let
And
yourself
we
feel
concern ourselves with whether we're supposed to eat white rice or brown rice rather than whether we're supposed to be taking a pill or not, right?
right. So so I wrote that song and I just something about the alliteration soul
Mhm.
surgery just was like, oh, that's cool. And then I wrote a few other songs and I realized that that's kind of like the I kind of had a theme going.
Yeah.
It was funny because one person I saw on Facebook or something, they were they were saying, man, your album's really good, but this album cover is like really bad. And I was like, really?
What?
They're like, to be honest with you, I almost didn't listen to it, but the album I did, and the album is so much better than the artwork. And I was like, oh. And in my mind, I was like, no, the album artwork is like perfect because it's um, the way it like just simply states soul surgery,
Yeah, yeah.
and it had nothing to do with the medical community or I know everyone wants to make it about vaccines or something. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was really like soul surgery. So I just liked that
Yeah.
title. I thought it sounded cool and it seemed to be like the theme.
Yeah, yeah. No, I didn't think that you were addressing that as much as you were just addressing the general tendencies that people have towards like, politicians and celebrities
Yeah.
and the system and even the churches and how people in the community treat each other in general. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Even in that, right? So easy to just lump you in with
Yeah.
a whole nother group, right? Of people just,
But oh, Nate's this is this album about anti-vaxxers? Like, no, not at all.
but
Not
I
at all.
love even that imagery though. I think it made that imagery very real for people in the sense that you have one of the images within the music videos and the album and marketing and everything, a syringe with a mirror on it, right? That's a mirror.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's like, it's how often are people encouraged to, like, it's people want to make it about the metaphor when it's actually about what the metaphor means, not about what the metaphor is, right? And and like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
so like people are going in and getting their boosters and all this stuff, and
Right.
taking their medications and doing all that stuff, right? Because they think like that's what they need to do.
Mhm.
And you're trying to relate that towards people's attitude with their attention, and people's attitude towards affirmation, and people's attitude towards like acceptance within this fake community that we all have created, in not
Mhm.
fake, but just like it's not tangible, it's not, you can't see it and feel it. We live through the screens.
Yeah, I'm all for. I mean, yeah, if you want to get vaccines, you want to do this about your physical health. What I have no opinion about that. Mine is the album deals with the soul,
Yeah.
which is a deeper thing, and it's often something that we overlook or we don't think is there, but it's actually what's causing us sickness.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the imagery too that you created with it seems like snakes are used a lot
Yeah.
in a lot of the marketing, and a lot, and
Mhm.
obviously the album cover there.
Yeah.
What was the intention behind having like snakes be such a theme within that soul surgery message?
It was, I think, you're kind of looking for something that's identifiable as an enemy.
Okay.
So especially in the Christian sense, you pretty much got a wolf or you got a snake, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, when I was kind of sketching it out, a snake just made sense because, like in the first sin, or the Adam and Eve, them being deceived wasn't it wasn't that Satan was like making them do something, or even, it was basically just a question. Did
Yeah.
God say that? And that's all it was. And so the snake imagery is sort of, I guess, illustrates that really sneaky kind of tactic of the enemy of just to, medicate yourself, or I know you're feeling like an emptiness in your life, but
Yeah.
money will fix that. And different things that I think we know at our core is not true, but we just still do it because, man, if you have to address the soul, that means you have to acknowledge that there is one, and if you have to acknowledge that there is one, that means that there's something more than the physical, and then that opens a whole can of worms that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't want to deal with, because the acknowledgement of God comes with a lot of things, including right and wrong.
Absolutely.
And
That's
so, yeah.
I remember that in one of the songs you had written, that it's, if I wouldn't, I'd butcher the actual lyrics right now, but that we want to focus on the pills, right? We want to focus on the external things, but it's internal.
Mhm.
It's what's going on inside as to why we all do these things, and why we all struggle, and why we all feel this pain that we're all going through,
Yeah.
no matter where you are, no matter what community you decide to subscribe yourself to. There are the people who are just like in the middle, not in power,
Mhm.
don't have any skin in the game, and they're the ones who are suffering because of everybody else, because of all of the snakes that do, and that
Yeah.
are trying to manipulate. I love that
Yeah.
theme of snakes too, because there are different kinds of snakes. There's obviously, like, there's Satan, right? There's
Mhm.
the devil who works his schemes in the world, but then there's also the politicians, and there's celebrities, and there's
Mhm.
people with agendas, and then there's people who maybe don't even realize that they're snakes, and they're being snakes, like, who maybe have good intentions but are doing things in a manipulative way, like
Yeah.
we ourselves can sometimes become snakes without even
Oh,
realizing
yeah.
it.
Yeah. We're
um
definitely part of that equation, and religious leaders as well.
yeah.
The song "God Knows" is about that. the ironic thing about the snake um, is also soul surgery.
That's so
Totally
good.
unintentional, but kind of cool. And then when I
You have
had
to say that though in the oh, what is it? What's the character from is it Robin Hood?
Jungle Book, you're talking
Oh,
about
Jungle Book. Yeah, 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 Jungle Book. Yeah,
soul
the snake there.
surgery. Well, then when I asked David to do vocals on a song, and then the cover art has like that hand with the snake bite on it, I was like, "Duh, Showdown, get snake bit."
Oh,
But honestly, I did not intend any of that. It just happened that way. I was like, "Whoa,
that was so cool that you pulled him out
serendipitous."
too. That was so cool that you pulled him out for that
Oh
feature.
man, that
And
was freaking. I mean, especially on that song. That song was very special to me. That was a very um that's one of those songs where like so I kind of have this rule that if I'm like tracking the song or if I'm like trying to sing the lyrics and I don't get choked up, it's probably not that great of a song.
mm,
For me, I'm like it has to kind of like I have to really hurt
yeah.
in that song. And so that one was particularly it's a deeper cut for me, but so to have him on that was amazing too. You know, because I know he comes from that not the same world, but the Christian rock world, and there's all kinds of things that come along
Was
with
that
that.
something
And
that you reached out to him about and like was just like, "Hey, I love your kind of music and would love for you to be a part of this," or are you guys friends? You guys go back in any way or
no, it was crazy. Like, okay, so I've been listening to this. I am a huge Showdown fan and have been for a long time. But I was at the gym. This is no joke because I'm at the gym.
course
Uh,
showdown in the gym, of
yeah,
course.
I'm listening to the Showdown, and
Yeah.
I'm doing my incline bench, and I stop as most people do, and they like take a breather, and you get on Facebook, and Arnold Schwarzenegger would come and slap my phone out of my hand if he saw me. But I was looking on that, and there's a tooth and nail forum that I was a part of, and I saw people were talking about the albums that came out 2020,
Mhm.
and I see David Button say Nate Parrish put out a banger this year. I was like, what? And I had to read it a couple times, and then I clicked on his profile. I was like, yeah, that's David. And so, and I had been thinking like, I want to get some guest vocals. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna do it. So I messaged him and said, hey man, would you ever want to like sing on a song? And he wrote back, he's like, I thought you'd never ask.
That's so cool.
We don't know each other. Um, we've never met, and so we just kind of like kept in contact and became friends. And when he was telling me like the inside baseball about Showdown coming back and playing,
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, bro, you have to do it. And then, yeah, we talk pretty often now, and working on some stuff still. So
Ooh, that's cool.
yeah, dude, yeah. So it's been like a yeah that
He
album.
seems to
And
have like a heart for that style of music too.
oh yeah,
Like,
he does. He's a punk rocker. He if you listen to his interviews, he talks about when the Showdown started. They were doing like punk tunes like MXPX and
uh-huh.
Dogwood and stuff like that. And somehow I think they were messing around, and like everything just kept getting harder and harder,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then before you know it, they're the Showdown, but not necessarily where he started. And so he was like stoked to do some punk rock. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And yeah, he's a beast. He's super funny. His text messages are the way
He
he
seems like
talks
such a
is so
he seems like a great guy and he seems like he
yeah,
just has so much like fun doing
yeah,
music. You
yeah.
hear about people and you can see people who probably like treat music like it's work, like, this is how I make my money and this is how I do my work, but you
Mhm.
can tell when someone's enjoying every moment that they're holding their instrument, every moment that they're holding the mic, every moment that they're collaborating and writing and doing stuff. He totally seems like that kind of guy.
Yeah, he's that guy for sure. And the other cool part was that was the first recording he had done in 10 years.
Oh.
So even for him, and he was saying that that song is special, because that's he's kind of
Yeah, favorite song for me. Definitely on the album, favorite
yeah,
song for me.
I think it's my favorite as well.
It's got that way of like the way that it builds, the way that it builds all throughout the song, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but the
Mm-hmm.
way it builds and at the very end, it's just like hitting you as if waves were just one right after the other crashing right on you, man. It's so good. And the way that you had written some of those lyrics, it was just so powerful and relatable. I think whether you go to church or not, whether you believe in God or not, or know what the cross symbolizes or not,
Mm-hmm.
it's something you feel the emotion with either way. You feel what you're supposed to feel listening to that song.
Yeah,
And
that's good. That's what I wanted.
I
So,
actually one of those lyrics is something I wanted to ask you about what it means to you, because I've obviously talked at length in a lot of my videos as to what it means to me, but I
mhm.
want to know from the source. For God knows, it's time to take the cross and cross the line. When you wrote that,
Yeah.
what was going on in your mind and heart, and what did you want to convey with that message? It's time to take the cross and cross the line.
So the song, I'll be vague-ish, but is basically about a being a part of a spiritually abusive environment
Mm,
where kind of faith, it's like the song talks about a pyramid scheme, right? Like you
yeah,
got your religious figurehead that is special revelation guy that, okay, if you read my book, come to my classes, do this or that, maybe you can learn how to be a super Christian like me, and sort of like gatekeeping on the concept of God.
yeah, yeah,
I'm special. God talks to me, so you got to go through me. It's another. We've been doing it since the beginning of time, but so being
yeah.
in something similar to that, and where you were ostracized, and I had personally been ostracized, blacklisted, um, just berated for asking questions or even calling them out on stuff that was, in my opinion, pretty blatantly unbiblical. But it's a culture of fear, so you don't really do that. You don't cross the line.
Right, right.
And so I had decided, screw it, I was going to cross the line. But the part about taking the cross and crossing the line is how in a religion, I call them religions because that's where it is. It becomes about there's no crossing it anymore. Um, there's no redemption for you with the cross. It's redemption by Jesus plus read my book,
Yeah, yeah.
tie it to my ministry, intern for me, do all these things. It's all these things added on top of the cross that Jesus never intended. So that line is basically saying, I'm going to take the cross with me because so you're not using it. I'm going to cross the line and I'm going to call you out.
Why do
So.
you think that, and this is something that I, you know, through this channel definitely want to discuss more and um, really navigate through, because I think that we've given a lot of power to, celebrities. Really, that's what a lot of religious leadership is now, is just a celebrity on Instagram and on YouTube live streams, like that we make them celebrities, Amazon bookstore, and why do you think that church goers give so much power to people like that and don't, like, they settle for that? They settle for being consumers rather than what the church is supposed to be, the body of Christ, right? We're supposed to
Mhm.
be all active in keeping each other um, accountable, keeping each other, like you said, you had been asking questions and you wanted to question
Mhm.
how someone else who was another part of the body was
Yeah,
functioning, and you should rightly be able to do that.
yeah. I think, well, it's not unique to Christians. It's pretty much a human issue.
Mm,
We've been asking God for a king forever. Um, we've been making idols forever. The minute you know, the minute God steps away, we melt our jewelry down and we make an idol. Doesn't take very long.
yeah, yeah,
We just that's our nature. We want a king. We want a figurehead. We want someone that we can tangibly look at. We want a LeBron James where we could be inspired by this person and be like, yeah, he's good at basketball, so he should tell us how to live. We want that, and it doesn't really change a lot in the church culture if you let it, because it's so easy for a pastor to get a big head and be like, "Oh, these people are listening to me," and just roll with that,
yeah,
and it's easy for you to just be like, "Well, it's pretty hard to like read the Bible for myself and use critical thinking skills that's pretty difficult. Why don't I just do what this guy says?
Yeah,
Because he's
yeah.
got a degree or whatever, and whatever he's standing behind a pulpit. He probably knows. It's much easier than actually working out your faith with fear and trembling. Fear and trembling are not like fun things to do.
Right, right.
We want someone to just tell us what to do,
And then we've
then we
institutionalized
yeah,
it through letting letting pastors go to school, and now we think that now you're unqualified unless you haven't gone to school, or worship leaders, right, who go to,
yeah,
like, you were doing worship leading, I'm sure at a very young age,
mm,
through Worth Dying For. You were leading
yeah.
people in worship, and like, you didn't, I don't know if you went to school at that time for music or anything, but you
No,
were
not I mean not
qualified
really.
because of what God had put in your heart to do. And
Yeah,
so I feel like yeah, we've handed that power over to
I
take the.
think that there's definitely something to be said for studying and showing yourself approved. That's good. Like
Right,
if
right.
there's something I want to, I have a talent, but I can always get better. So yeah, let's do that. I
Very
think
true.
with I just think it's a human tendency to do it. And if we're not careful, it happens and we don't even realize it. Like I'm pretty sure like celebrity pastors didn't intend to do that. Like I don't think there was a guy who's like, it'd be sick as if I had people just, worshiping at my feet. I don't
Right,
think that
right.
they
No,
start off that way,
nobody
I think
comes
that
in like Loki, right? Loki, you
no,
guys are
no.
you
I
guys
think
want to be ruled, and
they get there like that. Yeah, Loki's a great example, but I think that they get there and then you get to a point where so if you become the head of such a large institution that is built on one person, well then you've sort of started a machine that can't be stopped.
yeah,
And so now you have to act in protection of the machine because if you fail, the machine fails, which means all these people are left without their structure. They're left without their church system. So now you have to be the idol,
yeah.
and so it's a very sneaky thing that happens. It doesn't happen overnight, but we're just humans. We love to do it, man.
Yeah.
And then we love to tear our idols down. As soon as we get them up there, then we like to tear them down because we like to watch them fall.
Once they don't match the image that we thought that they had,
Mm-hmm.
then absolutely. I think that you have to trust that the people who are in leadership are doing just as much soul surgery as you are, in their responsibilities, or else they're going to end up becoming the snakes. They end up becoming the snakes. I think unfortunately, because we have our sinful nature, because we have so much working against us, it's like a closing door. If we don't work to open that door little by little, then it's just, if we do nothing to
Mm-hmm.
provide effort in opening up that door, it's just going to close and close and close, and then we make it very difficult to allow us to be in God's will,
Yeah.
to be in God's will and function the way that God has called us to function.
So accountability is huge. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, so it's kind of cringy, but accountability is huge. You got to have at least one friend that tells you when you're being an idiot, you
I
know?
mean, it may sound cringy, I think, just because accountability has been seen in the past as like someone pointing the finger at you and saying, you better not do
Yeah.
this, you better not do that.
Yeah.
But I think accountability should always be in the presence of love and in the presence of grace,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're showing someone truth and you're trying to reveal an error in how you think that they should be living, or what you believe um, that they've been called to, and you see that those things aren't aligning, right? There's dissonance, right? Life and
Yeah.
dissonance, right? There's
Yep.
dissonance in what they're saying and what they're doing, what they believe and what their behavior is.
Mm-hmm.
Then the people who are actually noticing, like, that's awesome that someone notices that. If someone were noticing me going astray, like me having that that's awesome. Somebody cares about me enough to notice that I'm off,
Yeah.
that I'm not on the same path that I was before, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But when it's just hate, when it's just bullets and blades, when it's just like, being used as a weapon, well then, yeah, then it becomes this horrible thing that no one wants to be a part of. No one wants to be a part of a war
No.
on, sin control,
Yeah. No, you gotta have some people around you that you have to let them know you're allowed to call me on stuff.
Yeah.
Because I tend to, I've been told that I'm intimidating. So people are like, oh, I don't want to talk to you because you look scary or whatever. I'm like, so I have to hey, it's okay if I'm doing something stupid. Please tell me. You have
Is,
permission.
is that why you have the hair? Is that why
Yeah.
you
I don't know, but I'm a teddy bear. I really am. I'm a super gentle guy, but people have told me that they're scared of me. So
for sure the first time I met you, I looked at you and I was like, "Whoa, this dude's like super tall, super buff." And like, yeah, I think the hair is like a good like, no, don't be scared.
don't be scared. No, you can come and brush my hair. It's fine.
But that's so funny. I mean, anything is intimidating if we like
Yeah.
are so
Yeah.
cautious of intimidating things that we assume that it's going to be that way. But yeah, the church in general definitely needs to pay attention to those people who see those things, who are
Mhm.
observers within the church, sitting in the pews if those exist anymore. My church still has pews, but
We do.
um,
We got pews.
yeah, but within the pews or in the seats, but they observe, and that's a good thing. That's a blessing that they care
Yeah.
enough to want to like. I don't think that verse that says examine yourself is just on the individual. Like we as the body of Christ need to continually examine ourselves and see like, do we look like the body of Christ or do we
Yeah.
look like something completely different?
Yeah. A big thing we're learning as a church staff and going through is gentleness. So if you are one of those people that's a caller outer sort of person, that's great. That's awesome. Just a word of advice is exercise some gentleness
Yeah.
because it's not going to do much good if they're not going to listen to you if you come guns blazing with no gentleness, because it's not going to it's if your desired result is for someone to hear you and potentially take into account what you're saying and hold it, pray about it, hold it to the word, all that stuff. Do it with gentleness.
Yeah.
Pointing a finger and being like, "Hey, you're an idiot." It's probably not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
You may feel cool about yourself, but you might not. I don't think it's going to affect any real change.
The other thing too that I think we rely on a lot in the church is that we indoctrinate a lot, which is not a bad thing. I don't think it's wrong to want to teach
Yeah,
people what right and wrong is.
it's an icky word because people made it that way. Indoctrinate. Everyone indoctrinates everybody.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. But we've relied on indoctrination to be our tool of evangelism
mm,
rather than doing, I think, the hard work of actually outreaching and creating disciples from people who their lives just do not align with where the church is at all.
mm,
And we rely on that because it's very difficult to bring someone from like zero in their sanctification journey to a disciple of Christ.
mm,
And that process is messy. That process is not a straight line. It's not easy for someone to help someone get to that point. And the reason I say that is because I'm a personal trainer and I've helped people learn how to do certain exercises and do them the right way.
mm,
It's similar to driving. You don't tell someone who's driving for the first time, all right, you have to make sure you look at the left mirror, the right mirror, the rear view mirror. You have to make sure you watch the gas. You have to make sure that you are constantly looking at how fast you're going. You make sure, is your seatbelt on, like all that stuff, right? You
yeah.
do it little by little and you understand what they can grasp first. And then you build off of that and you build off of that and you show them all those life lessons and all those things like, and I think that we've relied too much on the structure of church
Mm-hmm.
to be like, oh, well, like you should already know this. You should already get this. You should already like be arrived at all these things. Like, oh, you're questioning things now. Like, didn't you already go through that lesson? Didn't you already hear that sermon? Didn't you already read that book? Like all of those things. And like those are not things that would ever happen if you had a brand new convert who
Mm-hmm.
like was just learning what it meant to like touch a Bible and read it and know that God exists even, like I take care of my wife's little brother during the week here and he's at a place where he doesn't grasp everything and understand everything and I'm like where do I start? Like what do I like teach him first? Like where do we even begin with all this? So much I want him to know
Mm-hmm.
right now and it will not happen. It's just not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
And you have to go through that tough journey of building and building. And I feel like the church is unwilling a lot of times to do that. It's inconvenient for them to do those things.
it's definitely inconvenient, and some, it could affect our image, which we can't, we don't want, we can't have that. But so the church I'm at, which you came to the
Yeah, yeah.
concert, so that building, we had some guys on our worship team. I remember they would smoke outside
Mm.
in between services. They go upstairs and smoke on that balcony up there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember people being not thrilled about that.
Sure,
Oh, they're
sure.
smoking. Well, I thought they were Christians or whatever. And I was like, and truthfully, I'm like, you should be thankful that they're not smoking what they used to smoke. Let's put it that
Mm.
way. And so just the perspective of what if we just take a breath and believe the best in people for
Yeah.
once?
Yeah.
Because we just want to jump on, oh, well, they're a Christian, so they shouldn't be smoking or whatever. It's like, yeah. Let's meet them where they're at here, because what you don't know is they used to do hard drugs. So, like you said, it doesn't always happen overnight.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of alcoholics. I've lived with family members. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it
Absolutely.
does, but most of the time it doesn't. And so believing the best in people and then being gentle with them, um, because you don't know that for them, that's a huge step in their sanctification. It may not be where you're at, but that's you.
I'm sure there was there were I'm sure there was a lot of people who just wrote them off completely, and it sucks because like
Mhm.
again, it's a our sanctification journey is a journey where we're going to have high points and low points. And
Yeah.
forget about the fact that they're human beings, forget about the fact that they're members of the church, forget about all of the like amazing emotional experiences they might have had during worship, right? Forget
Mhm.
about how much they were blessed to have them last week, and then once they saw them smoke, that
I
now
know.
they're completely
But
and oh my gosh, I never want to hear worship from them again. Like, oh,
yeah, it's
like
it's
it just
crazy. It's crazy.
we jump to these conclusions, and I think there's so many things on both sides that the Bible addresses that I feel like in that case, I feel like when the Bible says that there are certain there are certain people who won't inherit the kingdom of God, and it goes through the list, but even in the most like these people won't inherit the kingdom of God, at the very end it says still with these people have an attitude of like such were some of you. Like, don't
Hmm.
forget that. Such were some
Yeah.
of you that you guys were doing the worst of all these things. So, like, with even like smoking, where the Bible, like, honestly, the Bible doesn't really,
Yeah.
say much about specifically smoking. I have this
Yeah.
conversation with people about drinking. Like, the Bible says not to get drunk. If
Right.
you have a drink, I'm not gonna like assume the worst that you party every single day and you are just drunk on your couch every single night. Like, I'm not gonna assume that by you having one drink. Okay, like let's let's give each other a little grace on in
Right.
our minds, right? Because it's all even happening just in our minds, what we assume.
Yep.
And so like we're supposed to have this attitude of such for some of you in the worst of the worst. And so with not even the worst, like let's just have an understanding that um every believer has the things that they are dealing with, and you can either I explained it this way to someone, and I love this image. We're supposed to judge each other by our fruits, right?
Hmm.
We all bear fruits, or we don't, right? And if you think that someone is struggling with bearing fruit, you think that they're a Jesus puts it in that you see a fig tree that is bearing fruit, it's alive, it's bearing fruit, and one that's dead and it's not producing fruit, right?
Hmm.
If you are trying to encourage another believer to produce fruit, you are going to water it. You are going to cultivate it. You're going to want to make sure you protect it. You're going to want to make sure that you pour into that. You're not going, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like when you're going around playing with stuff outside, if you've ever seen like a dead tree or a dead plant or something, you'll go and you'll
Hmm.
pick it, right? You'll like, I don't know why we want to do this, but we
Yeah.
want to like pick at dead things, right?
Yeah.
And break it because it feels good to break it, right?
Yeah.
We do that with people. Like we
Yeah.
do that with people where we will go up to weaker Christians or who we think are weaker Christians, and we will break them because
Mhm.
we can, or because we think we're such an amazing fig tree, that we that
Yeah.
we have the capability of doing it to other people. Like, no, we have to, like you said, be gentle. We have to
Mhm.
love, we have to give grace, and like actually do the opposite of what your flesh is telling you to do in that moment, because it is their flesh that is
Yeah.
being judgmental in that moment. Like, go up to them and water them. Go up to them and love
So,
them.
yeah, you see someone who's like, "Oh man, they're not producing any fruit." Like, hey, Smart guy. Go give him some water then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So that sucks. I love the church that you're at over there. It's so cool. So actually, I don't think I ever got a chance to ask you. So in that theater,
Yeah.
the theater is the church, or is the theater connected to the church?
So we've had two campuses. We're down to one now. Not that campus. We still have that building, but we meet another one ever since
Okay.
COVID and all that stuff, and having to spread out, and there's people online and stuff. So
Sure, sure.
we rent the theater out now to a church plant. So
Okay, that's
we're
so
helping
great.
out a church plant there, but we do like worship nights and things there. But yeah, that was when I first moved to Bakersfield. That was our only campus.
That's super cool.
One of the things I love because you could just have we had homeless people that were a part of the congregation. We knew them by name and all that stuff. So that spoke to me. That was part of the reason we wanted to go there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing that's growing over there is the punk rock culture that's being built, the music culture in general over there, right? So like
Yeah, it seems like it.
backstage and
Hmm.
all the venues over there, like
Yeah.
how have you been a part of that kind of movement that's growing? I feel like punk rock in general in California is just like starting to rise up. Is there a particular reason why you think that's happening or?
I think it's just because of me, dude. I think I single-handedly just well, I it's funny because I didn't, Bakersfield has a pretty rich musical history. Jerry's Pizza is legendary. So tons of Weezer, all kinds of huge bands that played there. So it's got a definitely a rich musical heritage. I think that it has its waves, like music scenes. And the last decade it's not been kind to live shows because it's like you can live stream it,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever, especially after coming after the lockdown. But I think you're seeing like a post-lockdown resurgence because everyone's like, remember live shows? Yeah, that was cool. And so, going back to playing shows. So I haven't played a ton locally, but I'm starting to now. And other bands are popping up and bands that were always there maybe, but like they have more places to play, so you're seeing their name more. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's been there. I think it just hasn't been it's just kind of like getting a little uh it's getting started up again. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think the
There's
punk thing is, yeah, I think there's a resurgence. It's kind of like it's more in the pop punk sense of things, where there's more of that vein, but I think also there's been a resurgence in punk rock because of the nature of pop. Punk has always been a reactionary genre
yeah.
because it's countercultural by nature. So when you have a culture that's pretty much you're taught to believe and think one way, well, the punks are not going to have it. So you're seeing a lot of that, and also a reaction of, just to be frank, like seeing a lot of punk rock bands and rock bands in general kind of become government shills. I think has been a kind of lights a fire under a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Where like, wait, I thought we were supposed to like rage against the machine, not rage for the machine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of that kind of reaction.
Which I love that attitude. I feel like the like main one of the biggest things that's always the big thing, right? The people on the bottom don't have the money to be able to just put on these amazing, extravagant festivals and concerts and hold up venues, and it's so sad to see venues dying
Yeah,
off left and right and struggling, and then so they have to put up pre-sale stuff, and then the pre-sales seem, like impossible for some of these bands. Like we just started like last week. You want us to sell 100 tickets? Like, we don't even have 100 friends.
yeah,
And I've seen a reaction in the punk community where just like, we're just going to play in a park and you're not going to tell us
yeah,
anything. We're just
yeah. I
going to play
mean,
at a skate park and like, we're going to host it in our home. We're just going to like do, and I'm like, did you talk to anybody to make that happen? Like, I'm so lame. Like, I'm just super like, how did you
well,
guys
yeah,
make that happen? Like, who did
want
you
to play
talk to?
by the books. Yeah, there definitely has been, like even when we played Jerry's, um, and you just plug and play. You just go. I mean, there's a monitor. I think there was a monitor, maybe. But I like, when I do all kinds of different music in different varieties. So, from Cutlass to church. So I'm used to like have, all the stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But like this, and I'm like, I can't really hear my voice, but I can hear the pitch. So I know, at least I know I'm on key, and then just roll with it.
Yeah.
And so there's something refreshing about that. And I think people like that because it's genuine. It's not like, the Ramones, for example, they during their era, they were seeing huge bands like Led Zeppelin and whatever, REO Speedwagon or whatever. They're just doing like 10-minute solos and doing
Yeah.
stuff, and it's all about flash. And they're like, this is not what music is to us. Like, this is not our my people. This is not what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
relate to. There's no music for the normal person. So that their thing was a reaction to that. To
It
it's a opposite reaction to the glamour rock thing.
absolutely. It dawned on me the other day, when I was building up the courage to ask you to do this interview. It just dawned on me like he probably has gone to a lot of the same shows that I grew up going to, like
Mm.
Spirit West Coast
Yeah.
and
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of the like C28 free concerts that they used to have going on. It's
Yeah,
so
dude.
funny. I'm literally drinking coffee out of a cup that has the Temecula Promenade um,
Ah,
on it because that's where they would have a lot of the Temecula free concerts at. They probably had more out your way if you were further north,
yeah. Mm.
yeah, man, I had gone to Fish Fest and Spirit West Coast and things like that. And of course, they had the main stage. Of course, they had all the lights and production and stuff. But like, I always identified more with the side stages. I always identified
Tent,
more.
the
What's up?
tent or the was it tent and fringe stage,
Uh
and
huh.
I think something like an extreme stage or something like that, or
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so funny. Jordan Felice, right? Jordan Felice
yeah,
was in classic the classic
classic,
affair, or no, sorry,
the current
current
affair,
affair. Yeah, current
yeah,
affair. And I have vivid memories, man, of maybe 15, 20 people in the tent, man, just like rocking
yeah,
out, and I was one of them, and I loved it. I was
heck
so
yeah,
brokenhearted when he picked up an acoustic guitar, and
yeah,
like I remember after shows I would see him, and his parents would be there in the back,
yeah.
and I was like, I know this is going to be me one day, like playing in
Oh
front of
yeah,
like
dude.
15, 20 people, and my mom's in the back and like helping out with. It's been so awesome to see where he's gone in life, and
It's a
everything.
he funny. So my mom was like, we Cutlass went and did a couple shows with him a couple years ago, and I knew him from a current affair because I was friends with Chasing Truth, and I had played shows with that whole crew of that kind of Modesto era punk rock,
Uh-huh.
not punk rock, but like kind of I don't know, post hardcore
Yeah,
emo
yeah.
stuff. So my mom was like, he's like your second cousin. I'm like, what? She's
Oh,
like, yeah, my
really?
my mom I forget what the lineage is, but like my mom's cousin, like he's related to her, therefore like we're weirdly related. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So yeah, so
That's
there's like
so cool. That's
I
super
haven't
cool.
I don't think I ever talked to him about it, but because I couldn't articulate how we were related. I couldn't remember, but yeah, I remember all that stuff. So back in the Worth Dying For days, that was my first go at Spirit West Coast. I remember going. So I grew up going to and playing in punk shows in Stockton,
Okay.
NorCal area. So the whole Christian live music world was very foreign to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had a girlfriend who was really into it, so she took me to Spirit West Coast, and she was like had a crush on Jeremy Camp or something like that.
Sure, sure.
And
Me too.
so yeah, well, of course. But I
Everybody,
remember
right?
going and thinking, wow, this is very sanitized and friendly. It's kind of cool. I was like, I probably no, I would never be big enough to play something like this. And yeah, and so Words I'm for we had played we actually played main stage, and but Air One was my favorite, dude. We played the Air One stage.
Oh yeah.
It was like all caged off, and we played after TFK or before TFK. Yeah, after before TFK. But I remember being stoked because I don't know if you remember Worth Dying For, right? You've
Of
heard the
course. Yeah, of
yeah.
course.
So I was the screamer in that band.
That's awesome.
So I was always trying to push us towards the more hardcore metal stuff. And so I was always secretly trying to get people to do mosh pits and things like that to our music, and it worked a few times. But that was my way of like trying to like infuse my roots into
Yeah, yeah.
the very friendly, you know, Spirit West Coast
It's got to
environment.
be weird. It's got to be. I feel like we could talk for hours. We'll have to make sure we do a part two of this. But
Oh
like
yeah,
it, I'm sure as someone who wasn't in that world coming into that world,
Hmm.
um, and even now I'm sure because you do play with Cutlass and you're very outspoken about Christianity in the music. I wouldn't say very, but like it's known, right? You're not
Hmm.
like cramming gospel into people's faces or anything, but you're not shy about the messages that you're trying to show.
Yeah.
um, I'm sure people assume like, oh, did you must have listened to Hawk Nelson growing up, right?
Yes.
You must have
Every
listened
time.
to
Every
Reliant
time.
K, right? And like
Yeah.
MXPX and
Yeah.
and
There was a
I'm lame because I'm the one who did grow up
no,
listening
no,
to those
no.
guys,
I
but
no, I think all that stuff is great. I have nothing against it at all. I liked MXPX growing up, but like I just wasn't exposed to that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's funny when people they hear my album, they're like, "Oh yeah, I could definitely hear you have a lot of like Reliant K influence, huh?" I'm like, "No, not at all." Nothing against them. I just don't. I'm like, nope. It's pretty much Misfits and Ramones and things
Yeah,
that I probably
is that
shouldn't
an
tell you I like. You
is
know?
that an awkward conversation, crushing the spirit of every
Yeah,
mom that has their kid
can
come
be.
up to you and say like, "Look, you need to be more like this guy right here
Yeah.
because obviously he grew up on all this good music." And then you're like, "Actually, no, it's you know."
Didn't grow up on that at all. No, no. So we have sometimes we do like Q&A things, and whenever people would inevitably ask, so what are your favorite bands? Me and James always look at each other and like decide if we're gonna like say it or not.
Uh-huh.
And so because I just, being truthful, like I know if I could say my favorite band growing up was Audio Adrenaline, then I would say it, but it's not. And I've never been a fan of that world. I just
Yeah, yeah.
have. It's nothing personal. It's not where I come from. So, and James either at all,
Yeah, yeah.
didn't come from that world at all. So nothing against it. It's just not what we do. So we usually, we'll drop a few. I'll say like, oh, you guys ever heard of Ramones or whatever? And, Minor Threat, but like, yeah, I sort of,
I
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's talked about enough because I had spent years and years and years, obviously, like growing up, my parents didn't let me listen to secular music. And so there
Mhm.
was years and years of just Christian music. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of Christian,
Yeah.
obviously, right? I'm a huge fan of Christian rock. For Sanctify Studios, I choose not to promote um, music that isn't sanctifying. And so that's kind of my vetting process that I go through. But
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that me myself that I don't listen to secular music. I absolutely do, and I
Yeah.
love bands like Beartooth and
Hmm.
Falling in Reverse and like bands that are bands I would not say that like I'm not going to tell everybody go listen to them and they're awesome examples of everything. But
Sure.
when I have someone in a conversation and I can explain and put context to things and actually like have a conversation about it, there's obviously great qualities in every single band that's out there. And I think we just choose to write things off. And yeah, in that moment you're like, am I going to have enough time to really
Yeah.
explain to someone all that context, or am I
Right.
just going to like,
Yeah.
so but I
I'm
don't
just
think
gonna
it's
go with
talked
the
about.
default. I love Hog Nelson. You're right. You got me.
Yeah, like it's hard to like choose that. And when James had mentioned Slipknot, it's literally
That's
been
so
it.
funny.
He mentioned that in a interview not too long ago.
Yeah.
I actually recently went through like a Slipknot. Like I want to hear everything that's in Slipknot
Hmm.
because I've heard multiple Christian artists mention Slipknot,
Yeah.
and so I kind of just went through a lot of their music, and I love being able to pick out like, oh, I could understand how like this song,
Hmm.
like I bet Project 86 heard this and was just like, we're gonna do this. And like
Oh
Demon
yeah.
Hunter took a little bit of this, and like Skillet or not Disciple, like a lot of people from Disciple have said they like Slipknot music, and like I could totally see that. And there's beauty in understanding where the influence is. And
Hmm.
I think that as Christians, like we want the story to be good, like we want the story to always be really clean and what we think it should be.
Right.
And like have you read the lineage of Jesus? Have you read where like
Hmm.
the people that he comes from and everything? Like it wasn't pretty, it wasn't
Yeah.
this like amazing story or anything. Like why do you think our Christian bands are any different? It's,
Well, the interesting thing is I could say, one of my influences is the Sex Pistols. I think that their one album is a masterpiece. And the fury of Johnny Rotten is something that I just love. I respect him so much for his vocal delivery and I think he's great. Not a Christian, but a fan of free thinking. So I respect that. If I were to say that, I draw a lot of influence from the Sex Pistols. I mean, first of all, it's got the word sex in it, so people be like, freaking out. But if I said, yeah, I'm a big fan of, and my music is really influenced by Johnny Cash, they'd be like, oh, that's great. Well, Johnny was not a perfect dude either.
Right.
I know. So, but it's because of one thing is perceived as evil because of the type of music and the look, and one is considered, oh, he's just a good old country boy. Country music is fine, even though it's secular.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, so what is that? And so I just think use wisdom.
Absolutely.
If there was a Christian band that was amazing like the Clash when I was growing up, then yeah, I'll listen to them, but just really wasn't. So
you have a line actually that I really appreciate that you put in there, because I think that it's important for us to like understand that this is where we live. But in your song, This Is Who We Are, you say that this is who we are. We live in the tension of faith and perception. We live in that tension. And there's different applications of that line, of course, but definitely in this sense as well, that like, just like believe just like you would believe that the person that's doing something wrong that you think is wrong, like just believe the best out of them, give them some grace, like give them a little bit of grace, and believe that there are things in their lives that may have been intended for evil that God can still turn to good, right?
Yep.
And then also believe that this like person that you're idolizing and putting up on a pedestal and thinking that he's perfect, like believe he's a sinner too, like believe he's imperfect, believe that there may be things he's struggling with, and maybe you shouldn't just take everything he says as gospel truth, like.
Yeah, I think if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, and one thing I would ask you to take away is try believing the best in people. It will change your life, because someday you're going to want someone to do that for you.
Absolutely.
You're going to see them be in traffic, and someone's going to cut you off, and you may have a slip up, and you're not going to want someone to hold that against you for the rest of your life, because they assume you're this, because this one moment in time you happen to screw up in front of someone. It's one moment. So believe the best in people, be gentle, give them grace, because you are sure as heck going to need that one day yourself.
Absolutely. And don't make that person that you think is so perfect on a pedestal and so like infallible, they can do no wrong. Don't make that person you. Don't make that you know better. You know better. You're a sinner just as much as everybody else. Such are some of you, like all of those attitudes there. And I've recently like had this epiphany that, the Bible says that God did not send his son to condemn the world. God did not send his son to condemn the world, but to save it. And we are disciples of Jesus Christ. And if we're disciples of Jesus Christ and his mission was not to condemn the world, but to save it, then how are we better reflecting saving the world and reaching out to people and showing them Jesus? Obviously, we're not going to save, we don't have the power to do that, but we can be a part of that and be used by God to do those things. And yet we settle for the condemnation. We settle for just pointing fingers at people and telling them how bad they are, like that. But that's not what Jesus came to do. And that's not why you're here. That's not what the body of Christ is supposed to do. Yeah. I love all this. So just before we go, I want to say, obviously there's a lot of different lines in your music that is so amazing, and maybe we'll have to go through them another time, but you have a design company that you've also created, a designing business called Black Pastel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of has writing music encouraged you to dive into that more, or have you always been doing that in the past? And
I think I've been drawing longer than I've been writing music. So
okay,
I've been an artist since I was 5 years old, drawing pictures and doing all that kind of stuff, drawing comic books. But I started doing merch for Worth Dying For because I could. We were a
Yeah, yeah.
small band, so we did our own. I made our own merch and stuff, and then like you'll see something, and then a band will be like, "Who did that?" And you're like, "Oh, I did," and then they ask you to do something for them. I got a design job for FM Static. I did their album,
What?
Dear
Which album?
Diary, Dear Diary, the one with all
That's
the
so
drawings.
cool.
Yeah,
That's so
so
awesome. I could totally see that.
yeah,
What?
we did
The
a.
music video too? You did the
No, I just gave them the caricatures.
Okay, okay. But still,
Um,
that's so cool. I could totally
yeah,
see that.
it was rad. We were touring with TFK, and he saw me drawing stuff, and he's like, "Dude, you want to do our album?" I was like, "Okay." So,
Oh man, you can't tell me
um,
that now. Oh man,
yeah, so
there's
I
a
did.
part two in the future for sure because
So,
TFK was my favorite band
oh man, dude,
growing
Pepper
up.
is freaking awesome. Like, we still
He's
talk, and yeah, he's a great guy. He's real deal
you could
for
feel
sure.
emotion just oozing out of him in every song that he does.
Oh
So
yeah,
cool.
he's freaking awesome. But so yeah, so kind of the music sort of I had always been drawing and designing and doing stuff like that, but it kind of brought along. And then when I started doing my own stuff, I was like, well, duh, I'm gonna do all my own illustrations because that's half of the fun is creating all the illustrations and doing all the videos and stuff like that. And um, I just like creating. So and then because of that, other bands will see it and you start doing it that way. So I had never really had a name for it. It was just like, yeah, hit me up if you want me to draw something or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I decided to kind of do it more official, and so I'm doing some band stuff and some new band stuff that's coming out, and I did some
Was
stuff
there
for
ever any
Showdown.
hesitation in that? Like, is there, or was it just like you never thought of putting it out there or anything? Or
I think I've always, I think in an attempt to stay humble, I've sort of downplayed myself in a way of, oh, I'm not going to really, I'll just do it on the side.
mm,
I'm not that good at it or whatever, just because I just like doing it. And so
yeah,
the business part of it is always rough because it's like, yeah, I'd love to design this. How much do you want? And that's where it gets weird. So I've
yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of had to learn to, this is what my time's worth and take it or leave it kind of deal.
yeah, yeah,
And so, someone, if you want me to design something that's like what I do, then let's do it. That's what you'll get.
yeah.
You'll get a Nate Parrish looking thing. So just being confident in that,
How
I think.
dare you not do it for ministry, right? How dare
I know. Hey, no, it happens, dude. It happens. I get requests all the time. It's like, hey, it's a ministry. Can you do it for free? And I'm like, but what about my child? Like,
Right. My
but what
child needs to
about,
eat. Yeah.
yeah. And I just politely say, yeah, I'm just working on, some paid stuff right now because I like food. I eat a lot of it, so does my kid. So, you know, um,
They skim past the part of the Bible where it says that it's okay for the workers to take from the field, right?
yeah. And
Like
I
it,
work in ministry. My day job is ministry, so I'm right there with you. Like I'm not rolling in dough. So,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, it's been cool. Gotten to do some fun projects, some stuff you'll see come out this year. I got to do that design for the Showdown, which is like a dream come true for me.
So awesome.
And yeah, so yeah, it's
That's
good.
awesome. I just wanted to plug it because definitely that's an awesome thing. If you're considering doing that with Nate Parrish and his graphic designing and stuff, definitely worth it. Because
Appreciate it.
he it seems like you pour your heart and passion into everything that you do, whether it's the lyric writing, conversations, the graphic designing, and obviously collecting figures as well. It doesn't seem like you can
Yes.
hold back on your passion there. So it's
That's you can barely. That's only half the passion right there.
oh,
This.
okay. I saw the Hulk earlier today and
Yeah.
uh,
R.I.P.
RIP.
R.I.P. Buddy.
So
He gave his life doing what he loves, smashing. So
but yeah, I just wanted to plug you there because I
thanks,
think I
bud.
think everything that you're doing is awesome and we'll definitely have to talk again sometime soon. But
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate it. I will tell you this. So your reaction videos are awesome. Everyone does, reaction videos, and they're fine. Yours is really, really good because I'm like, oh, this guy actually like understands. Um, and we were in Germany when Words of Fire came out, and you did a reaction video for Words of Fire.
yeah, yeah.
Man, uh, hopefully he doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but that it really touched James. Like he got
Mm,
very emotional about it, which made me very emotional because you know just two dudes in Germany, like, and because, he was like, he, and sometimes, we all feel this way at some point, like, is what I'm doing does it even matter? Does anyone even notice? Does anyone care? Those are the thoughts you go through as an artist.
Yeah, yeah.
And for you, when you put so much thought and you were just like getting it, for James, it was very, it meant a lot.
I think
So,
I
yeah.
think in today's age of like, Instagram numbers, your Spotify count, your streams,
Yeah.
your album sales, and people sitting in the churches, the only metric that God gave us to live by was to go and make disciples. He didn't even say how many, right? He didn't say go make 10, go make 100, go whatever, it's to make disciples and to be the salt of the earth and to be the light in the earth. And
Mm-hmm.
those are not things that you can quantify,
Can't
those aren't things that
quantify
you
it. No.
can, and I really, God's given me a lot of empathy, I feel like, and a lot of understanding for stepping out of just being a consumer of those things,
Mm.
because I do feel like for the longest time I was a consumer, and as I've gotten older, I've realized more and more just how important and meaningful those things are in my life, because I see it when it's not there in a lot of other people's lives. And I
Mhm.
feel when I hear like, oh, there wasn't a positive voice in your life, or there wasn't
Mm.
someone speaking these truths into your ear every single day, like every single day you're getting encouragement from these bands that are doing things that they love, creating art, they're making music, but like there's not this
Yeah.
conversation, and so it's very hard to quantify those things. But man, the stuff that you guys do, and you, James, I especially like the bands that have stayed faithful and that have remained, um, still wanting to keep the church accountable, which I think is very important, but also choosing not to leave the church, choosing to understand that Jesus didn't disassociate with the church, and
Mm.
neither should we. Like this
Yeah.
is still something that's worth fighting for and fighting with and wrestling with and being in that tension with. But
Mhm.
man, the work that you guys do, it translates into confidence in other believers, in the
Mm.
confidence in me to be able to minister to other people. And I'm sure I'm not the only person. I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are encouraged by what you guys do daily, that feel the truths that you speak, and it manifests into disciples being made. And again, like it sucks that it's something we can't quantify. It sucks that we can't get the, like, but I was,
Spotify wrapped on it.
yeah, I was recently encouraged by someone I was on a podcast with, and it's so true. I didn't even think about this, but I was like, imagine we all want to be Cutlass, we all want to be Disciple, we all want to be these big bands that like, or Jeremy Camp, or like fill arenas and all this stuff. But like, what if you knew you never were going to be there? What if you
Mm.
knew you were only ever going to play in front of 100 people, or you were only ever going to play in front of 10 people, and those 10 or those 100 were going to get saved? Would you
Mm.
still take it? Would you take it
Yeah.
if it meant you would not be filling up stadiums? And they had revealed to me, well, like, look at Abraham. God said Abraham's blessing was going to be fulfilled in his ancestors, not even him. Like, he
Yeah.
wasn't even going to see it. He was told, you're not even going to see it. It's going to be your ancestors, not even you. Like, would you take it?
Mm.
Would you accept that? And I think that,
Mm.
as believers, we have to, like, do what just God has put in our heart to do. Just do it.
Yeah.
And obviously, make those decisions, like not getting taken advantage of, not being pressured or bullied into doing things that God isn't calling you to do. And I think the church does a great job of sometimes bullying and not
Mhm.
not treating people fairly sometimes. Um, but it's the wrestling again. It's the wrestling. But thank you guys so much for everything that you do. Thank you for what you've done, even in Cutlass and with your music and Nate, with your project, Nate Parrish, and like, it's encouraging me to continue to write for my stuff and to be able to go out and reach other people. And that's 2 Timothy 2:2. We teach through what you're doing in your music, and it's going to people who are able to do that for others also. So
So, man, we'll appreciate it. Yeah, what you're doing is great. We appreciate you as well. So.
All right, brother. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for doing this. And where can we find you on everything?
NateParrish.com, just a one-stop shop. So yeah, all the stuff is there. So
Simple. I like it.
yeah.
Just like punk rock, right? Just the
Simple. It's
content
like
is what matters, right?
black coffee, baby.
That's
Black
right.
coffee.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, then be sure to leave this video a 5-star rating and review. You can do me a huge favor if you're watching this on the YouTube channel. You can leave this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can hit the notification bell so that you're notified when new videos arrive. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, then you can go ahead and follow or subscribe there. And this is totally something that I want to do more often. I really love getting to know the people behind the music, especially for our Christian artists. I want to know their heart. I want to know their passion. I want to know their story, their history, their message, and all those Easter eggs in between, you know? So, and like I said before, Nate Parrish is so easy to talk with. He's such an awesome dude. And it was so great to hear all of everything that he had to share. So stay tuned for more guests. And I didn't get to do this with him in the interview, but I want to make sure that we do it now. I want to make sure we close off today's episode with a prayer. And I'd love for all of us to be able to pray for Nate Parrish and everything that he's got going on for 2023. So let's close today's episode off with a prayer. Heavenly Father, God, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity that we have to be able to reach through the internet and have conversations with people who are miles and miles away, and just spend moments of just encouraging each other and having good conversation where we can really meditate on truths that you put in our hearts to share. God, I pray that you would be with all of us as we go into the holiday season where we have plenty of opportunities to be able to talk with family and share grace and share love and share truth. And Lord, be with Nate Parrish as he is going through the end of this year, going into 2023 with everything that he's got planned. I pray that you would guide him, that you would be with him, that you'd encourage him. It is so hard to be an artist, period, but to be an artist where there's so many eyes on you, there's so many expectations placed on you. I pray that you would just help him to know that you are the one and only person that he needs to please, that you are the one and only person that he needs to answer to, that he needs to listen to for that guidance, God. I pray that you would put it on his heart to know where to go, that you would direct his steps, and that he would lean on you for all of his understanding. And God, as he speaks these truths, as he just boldly sets the standard for just being an outpour and an outflow of what you've put onto his mind and his heart, I pray, Lord, that you would just encourage him with all of the things that he might not be able to get feedback on, Lord. Again, there's so many eyes on him and there's so many expectations placed on him, but there's also expectations that I'm sure he has of how people will react to the things that he puts out, to how people will receive the things that he puts out. And there's so many things that are just, there's no way to quantify and to be able to know each and every person who's touched by his music and touched by his ministry. But I pray, Lord, that you would just allow him to be able to have confidence in what he does, confidence in knowing that he's doing your will and doing what you've called him to do. And I pray that in 2023, you would just gift him success and gift him with opportunities to reach out to people, opportunities to share more and more truth, and opportunities to create more and more music, God. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Take care, guys.